The Benton farmhouse was not like the others. From the road it looked simple. A white house with a porch, fields of corn all around. But it held a secret that started in the ground beneath it. The basement was wrong. Most farmhouses from that time had small cellars, just a place for jars of food, and maybe some old tools. A dark, dusty room, nothing more. But the Benton basement was different. It was huge. It stretched far beyond the walls of the house above. Its size made no sense. It was too big, too deep, like a cave dug by something that was not human. This strange space was the heart of the mystery. Why would a simple farmer need a basement so large? People who visited the property later said it felt wrong. The air was heavy, cold. Even on the hottest summer day, it was as if the ground itself was holding its breath, waiting. The plans for the house showed a normal cellar, small, unremarkable. But what Oswald Benton built was a labyrinth, a concrete maze hidden from the sun. The work must have taken years. It was a project of obsession, a secret project he kept from everyone, especially his wife. Engineers who studied the site later were confused. The construction was strange. The walls were thick, thicker than any normal basement would need. They were reinforced with steel, like a bunker, something built to hold something in, or to keep something out. The sheer amount of dirt that Oswald must have moved was staggering. He did it all by himself, with simple tools, a shovel, a wheelbarrow. The neighbors never saw trucks or heavy equipment. They just saw Oswald, working, always working, tirelessly, as if driven by a force he could not control. The feeling of wrongness grew the deeper you went. The main house felt sad, lonely, but the basement felt awake. It had a presence, a low hum that you could feel in your bones. People would get headaches. They would feel dizzy. Some said they heard whispers, faint sounds that seemed to come from inside the concrete walls themselves. The house was just a shell. The real story, the dark story, belonged to the impossible space that waited in the earth below. It was a place of secrets, and it was hungry for more. We know about the darkness because of Marguerite Benton, his wife. She wrote letters, many letters, to her sister, Eleanor, who lived far away in the city. These letters are our only window, a small crack of light into the growing shadow at the Benton farm. Without them, the story would be lost, buried with the house. The letters were found decades later, tucked away in a wooden box in an attic. They were a timeline of fear, a record of a life slowly coming apart. Each page held a piece of the puzzle, a fragile voice speaking from the past, a voice that was getting more and more afraid. Marguerite's early letters were simple, full of the small details of her new life. She wrote about the farm, the endless fields, the quiet nights. She was a city girl, not used to the silence, not used to the isolation. The letters show her trying to be brave, trying to make a home. She described learning to cook on a wood stove, tending to the small garden she planted near the porch. She talked about the sunsets, how the sky turned orange and purple over the corn. She tried to find beauty in her lonely world. But even in the beginning, there was a feeling of unease, a sense of being watched. She wrote a lot about Oswald, her husband. At first, she described him with love. He was a good man, a hard worker, strong, quiet. He spent his days in the fields, from sunrise to sunset. He was dedicated to the farm, but he was also distant. He had a private world inside his head, a place she could not enter. She wrote that he sometimes stared at the horizon for hours, not speaking, his eyes seeing something she could not. She felt like a guest in his life, a visitor in her own home. The silence between them grew longer each day. These letters are so important. They are more than just words on paper. They are Marguerite's soul, her fears, her hopes. Reading them feels like listening to a ghost, You can feel her loneliness, her confusion, her growing terror. The paper is thin, the ink is faded, but her voice is clear, a voice calling out for help, a voice telling a story that no one would believe until it was too late. The letters are a map that leads directly to the door of that terrible basement, and to the secret that Oswald was digging from the earth. In the first year, Margaret tried her best. She wanted to be a good farmer's wife. She wrote to Eleanor about her days. They were long and full of work. She woke before the sun. She made breakfast, packed a lunch for Oswald, cleaned the small, quiet house. She mended his clothes by the light of a kerosene lamp. She learned the names of the birds. She watched the seasons change the color of the fields. She described the smell of the earth after rain, the sound of the wind in the tall corn. She was trying to plant roots in a place that felt like it did not want her there. Her isolation was a constant theme in her letters. The nearest neighbor was miles away. The town was a long trip by horse and cart. Days would pass when she saw no one but Oswald, and he was often just a distant figure in the fields. She wrote, "The silence here is a living thing, Eleanor. It breathes. Sometimes, at night, I think I can hear its heart beating." She missed the noise of the city, the voices, the music, the feeling of being surrounded by life. On the farm, she was surrounded by an emptiness that felt vast and ancient. It pressed in on her from all sides. Oswald's work was his entire world. He was more than a farmer. He was obsessed. He worked with a strange energy. He never seemed to tire. Margaret wrote that he rarely spoke about his day. He would come in for dinner, covered in dirt, eat in silence, and then retreat to his study, a small room where he kept books, strange books, full of diagrams and symbols she did not understand. He would lock the door. She would hear him muttering to himself late into the night. It was the beginning of his secrecy, the beginning of the wall he was building between them. Marguerite's letters from this time are a mix of hope and sadness. She hoped Oswald would change, that he would talk to her, share his thoughts. She hoped a child would come to fill the quiet house with laughter, but there was also a deep sadness, a feeling that she was fading, becoming part of the quiet landscape. She wrote, "I feel like a ghost in my own home. I walk through the rooms, and sometimes I'm not sure I leave a footprint." She was a prisoner of the farm, and the walls of her prison were slowly closing in. Then, things started to change. The tone of Marguerite's letters shifted. The simple sadness turned into a sharp, cold fear. It happened slowly at first. A strange comment here, a worried sentence there. She wrote that Oswald had changed. He was no longer just quiet. He was different. His eyes had a new light in them, a wild, excited light that scared her. He stopped working in the fields as much. His new work was in the basement. He spent all his time down there. He had started a project, a secret project that he would not explain. He called it his great work. The atmosphere in the house grew heavy, darker. Margaret described it as a sickness in the air, a feeling of constant dread. The house no longer felt empty. It felt occupied by something unseen. She wrote that she would hear strange noises, a low humming sound that seemed to come from the ground itself. It was a sound you felt more than you heard. It made her teeth ache. It gave her terrible headaches. She wrote, "The house groans now, Eleanor. It is not the sound of an old house settling. It is the sound of something in pain." The farm was no longer just lonely. It was becoming hostile. Oswald's behavior became more and more bizarre. He would talk to himself, not just muttering. He would have long, detailed conversations, but there was no one there. Margaret would stand outside his study door and listen. He spoke in a language she had never heard. It was guttural, full of harsh, clicking sounds. It made the hair on her arms stand up. He lost weight. His skin became pale. His hands were always covered in a strange reddish clay from the basement. He looked like a man being consumed by his own secret. Her worry turned to terror. She was no longer just lonely. She was afraid. Afraid of her husband. Afraid of the house. Afraid of the sounds that came from below her feet. She started locking her bedroom door at night. She wrote, "I don't know the man I married anymore. He is a stranger. His eyes. Eleanor, his eyes look at me like he doesn't see me. He looks right through me, at something behind me." The change was complete. The quiet farmer was gone. In his place was a man possessed by a dark and powerful purpose. A purpose hidden in the deep earth. The basement became a forbidden place. Oswald put a new door at the top of the stairs, a thick, heavy door made of oak. He fitted it with a large iron lock. He kept the only key on a chain around his neck. He never took it off, not even to sleep. The basement was now his world, a world she was locked out of. He spent most of his nights down there. She would hear him go down after dinner. The heavy lock would click shut, and he would not come back up until just before dawn. The house was divided, her world above, his world below. The sounds got worse. The low humming was constant now, but there were other noises, a rhythmic thumping, like a giant heart beating deep in the earth. Sometimes there were grinding sounds, the sound of stone scraping against stone. It went on for hours, night after night. Marguerite would lie in her bed, pressing a pillow over her ears, but she could not block it out. The vibrations traveled through the floorboards, through the frame of the bed. She could feel the work he was doing. She felt it in her bones. The whole house trembled with it. Marguerite started to get sick. She described constant headaches, nausea, dizziness. Her hair began to fall out. She wrote that there was a strange metallic taste in her mouth all the time. She felt weak, tired, as if the energy was being drained out of her. She wrote, "I think the house is making me ill, or whatever is in the basement is. The air is thick. It is hard to breathe. It smells of damp earth and something else, something like hot metal or electricity." Her beautiful handwriting became shaky. The words started to slant across the page. Her fear was now a living thing. It sat with her at the dinner table. It followed her through the empty rooms. It lay beside her in the dark. She was terrified of what Oswald was doing. What was he building, or what was he digging up? She wrote about a dream she had over and over, a dream of a door opening in the basement wall, and something dark and vast looking out. She would wake up screaming. The sounds from below would be her only answer, the rhythmic thumping, the grinding, the endless, terrible work in the dark. The final letter was different. It was short, hurried. The handwriting was almost impossible to read. It was a scrawl of pure panic. The date at the top was smudged. It looked like late autumn. The words were desperate. A final cry for help into the silent world. She did not write "Dear Eleanor" at the top. She just started writing, as if she had no time, as if something was coming for her. This letter was not found with the others. It was found years later, slipped under a floorboard in her bedroom, hidden, as if she knew it was her last chance to tell her story. She wrote that Oswald had finished his work. The sounds from the basement had stopped. For one night, the house was silent. It was a silence that was worse than the noise, a heavy, waiting silence, an expectant hush. Marguerite wrote that Oswald had come to her room that morning. He did not look like her husband at all. He looked ancient. His face was a mask of dirt and exhaustion, but his eyes were burning, glowing with a terrible triumph. He told her, "It is ready. Tonight, you will see. The gateway is open." He was smiling. She had not seen him smile in over a year. It was the most frightening thing she had ever seen. The letter describes her absolute terror. She knew she was in danger. She did not know what the gateway was, but she knew it was something awful, something that should not be disturbed. She wrote, "He is not my Oswald. Something is wearing his skin. It talks with his voice, but it is not him. The thing he has been talking to in the dark. I think he has let it in." She planned to run, to leave that night while he was in the basement. She was going to go to the neighbors, to the police, to anyone who would listen. She was begging Eleanor in the letter to believe her, to tell someone what was happening at the farm. The letter ends abruptly. The last sentence is unfinished. It says, "He is coming up the stairs. The lock. I can hear the lock. Oh God, Eleanor, the ground is shut." The ink trails off the page, a final jagged line. That is all. After that, there is only silence. Margaret Benton disappeared. No one ever saw her again. The town marshal came to the farm. Oswald said she had left him, that she went back to the city. He was calm, convincing. The marshal believed him. The house on the hill kept its secret, and Oswald Benton was left alone with his open gateway. Years passed. The farm was sold. Oswald Benton lived there until he died, an old and withered man who spoke to no one. The house sat empty, falling into ruin. The story of Marguerite's disappearance became a local legend, a ghost story told to scare children. But one man did not think it was a story. His name was Arthur Vining. He was a local historian, a quiet, bookish man. He became obsessed with the Benton farmhouse. He felt that the official story was wrong. He believed something terrible had happened there. He dedicated his life to finding out what it was. Vining spent years gathering information. He was the one who found Marguerite's letters in her sister's attic. He read them over and over. He saw the pattern, the slow descent into madness and fear. He interviewed the old neighbors. They told him about Oswald's strange behavior, his obsessive work, the way he changed. Vining became convinced that the answer was in the basement. He visited the abandoned farmhouse many times. He noted the strange, oversized foundation. He felt the cold spots. He heard the faint, humming sounds that were still there, even after all those years. His research took a toll on him. His friends said he became like Oswald. He was secretive, paranoid. He filled dozens of notebooks with his theories. He wrote about ley lines, about strange geological formations under the farm. He found old maps that marked the area as unholy ground. He believed Oswald had not been building something. He believed he had been digging for something that was already there, something ancient, something that had been waiting in the dark for a very long time. Vining wrote that the basement was not a basement, it was an antenna, a device to communicate. Vining's obsession ended tragically. He died young, a sudden heart attack. His doctor was baffled. He had been a healthy man. His family found him in his study, surrounded by his notes and maps of the Benton farm. His last written words were in a notebook on his desk. He wrote, "The frequency. It's still broadcasting." Oswald didn't close the door. He just locked it. Vining's death added another layer to the mystery. Did he simply work himself to death? Or did he get too close to the secret of the farmhouse? Too close to the thing that was still broadcasting from the dark? For decades, Arthur Vining's research was forgotten. The farmhouse crumbled. The fields grew wild. The story was just a whisper. Then, in the early 2000s, a university research group bought the property. They were paranormal investigators. But they were also scientists. They had read Vining's notes. They came with ground-penetrating radar, with magnetometers, with sensitive audio equipment. They wanted to find out, once and for all, what was hidden beneath the Benton farmhouse. What they found was more shocking than any ghost story. The radar confirmed it. The basement was a monster. A sprawling complex of tunnels and chambers. Getting inside was difficult. The original basement stairs were gone, collapsed. They had to bring in heavy equipment. They drilled through the thick concrete floor of the kitchen. The moment they broke through, a rush of cold, stale air filled the house. It smelled of damp earth, ozone, and something else, something foul, like rotten meat. The team members felt a wave of nausea and dread. Several of them had to go outside. The feeling of a malevolent presence was overwhelming. It was a place that did not want to be entered. It fought back with an invisible pressure. What they found inside was a nightmare of concrete and clay. The walls were smooth in some places, rough in others. There were strange symbols carved into the concrete, symbols that matched the diagrams in Oswald's books. They were not from any known language. In the center of the largest chamber, they found it, a deep, circular pit. The walls of the pit were lined with a strange dark metal that did not corrode. At the bottom of the pit, there was nothing, just darkness. The researchers' lights could not reach the bottom. It seemed to swallow the light. The team documented everything, the strange carvings, the weird metal, the oppressive atmosphere. They recorded the low-frequency hum that Vining had written about. It was still there, a constant low-level signal coming from the pit, but they found no bodies, no tools, no sign of Margaret. It was as if Oswald had cleaned up everything before he left, or as if the basement had cleaned itself. The team left feeling deeply unsettled. They had found the what, they had found the where, but they had not found the why. The place felt active, waiting. It felt. Today the site is sealed. The university filled the hole with concrete. They declared the area unsafe, not because the building was old, but because of the psychological effects it had on people. The questions, however, remain. They hang in the air like the dust in that terrible basement. They are the true ghosts of the Benton farmhouse. The mystery is not solved. It is only deepened. The evidence found by the researchers opened up 100 new questions for everyone it answered. The story of Oswald and Margaret is no longer just a sad tale. It is a terrifying puzzle with missing pieces. The biggest question is the most obvious. What was Oswald Benton actually doing? Was he a madman? A genius? A victim? Was he building a machine? A tomb? A temple? The symbols he carved, the books he read, the sheer scale of his work, it all points to a purpose that goes beyond simple madness. Was he trying to contact something? The gateway he mentioned to Margaret suggests he was trying to open a door between worlds. If he succeeded, what came through? And where did it go? And what happened to Margaret? Did Oswald kill her to protect his secret? Was she the first sacrifice to his open gateway? Or did something else happen? Something worse? Did she see what was at the bottom of the pit? Was she pulled into the darkness she saw in her dreams? Her final frantic letter suggests an immediate physical threat. Her body was never found. It is as if she was erased from the world. Her last, terrified words hang over the entire mystery, a testament to the horror she faced in those final moments. The final question is perhaps the most unsettling. Is it over? The researchers recorded a signal, a low, constant hum. The feeling of a presence is still strong at the site. Arthur Vining believed Oswald never closed the door. He just locked it. If the basement was a gateway and that gateway was opened, is it still open? Is something still listening from the darkness beneath the farm? The silence there now is not peaceful. It is the silence of a predator, waiting patiently. The Benton farmhouse stands as a warning. Some doors are not meant to be opened, and some secrets are better left buried in the cold, dark earth.